Hello, hello. When people threw around wild Strangler accusations, few were more funny than Kevin. You'd have to be a pretty jaded pessimist to think that our sweet Kevin could be a murderer or embezzler. That's why I just think he's a market manipulating, money laundering racketeer. And I'll tell you why. First, I have to paint you the Dunder Mifflin financial picture over the years, and bear with me because the first point is a little complicated. We have to find out when a recently transferred Jim says this.
You made any sales yet?
Yeah, sold about 40,000.
Hey.
Shut up, that's impossible.
No, it's not, and I did, yeah.
Well, I did it too.
Now we need to know how long he's been in Stanford to make that 40K. The last episode of Season 2 was March 12th, 2006, but Episode 2 of Season 3 is a bit more tricky. The date of Phyllis's wedding is the linchpin. That's definitely Saturday, and the rest of the card says something you wary, and judging by the first letter, it's probably February. There's only one digit on the Phyllis and Bob Vance commemorative fridge magnet in a deleted scene, so the wedding takes place on February 3rd, 2007. Phyllis lets Michael in her wedding party so she can get 6 weeks off for her honeymoon. The next time we see Phyllis is on a Friday when Roy attacks Jim. So Phyllis must have been back March 23rd. Andy comes back the same episode but the next working day. And since we have to squeeze 4 episodes into 4 days, it's safe to say it's Monday, March 26th. Andy had to go to anger management for 10 weeks, which means he left on January 12th. That's also the same episode that Oscar is coming back from his 3-month vacation. Go back 3 months, and that means the first episode of Season 3 was October 12th, 2006. Episode 6 is Diwali, which was on October 21st. Therefore, Episode 2 takes place at the latest October 17th. Michael tells Jim that Pam's single, and Jim says that he heard something like that. It's not important when Jim found out or whether he knows that Pam's single. What's important is that Michael doesn't think that Jim knows, which means he left before the breakup. Roy got a DUI June 27th, so let's give Jim Sales every advantage and say that Roy's decline was super quick, only took 4 days between breaking up and getting arrested. With an overestimated transfer date of June 26, Jim had 77 business days to make that 40K. And remember that Dwight is envious of the amount and lies about making the same. It's an overestimation again if we put the entire sales team on that level. And to keep things fair, we'll throw Michael and Creed in there at a proportionate rate. You'll see why in a sec. So finally, in Season 3, it would be generous to say that the Scranton Branch is making $839,792. Side note, Pam says she has lunches for 5 weeks after the wedding fell through. The wedding was supposed to take place June 10th. There's 111 working days between June 10th and November 17th. And Roy and Pam both have lunches, which means there was 222 people coming to that wedding. Beasley, that's excessive. The rest of the data we have are quarterly sales reports in Seasons 5 to 6 and Season 7. Much easier to see. The quarterly sales report above Kelly's desk stays the same for more than a year in the show. But is anyone shocked that Kelly doesn't update her charts regularly? What we really need out of this is that in or around Season 5, Scranton Branch was looking at $3,183,648. And Michael and Creed made sales, so there you go. The table in Season 7 includes the sales team as well as the drivers because of Daryl's idea. And they made around $1,193,000 that year. Next, we should estimate the expenses of Dunder Mifflin to a reasonable level. Take the average salaries for their positions in Pennsylvania, plus we know the majority of staff make $50K plus benefits, and it costs a bit over $1 million a year for staffing, not including everyone's insurance and benefits. I found a nice office with a warehouse in Scranton we could lease for $200K. Let's not get into the operational cost of the building itself. What we do need to account for is the cost of the product, because paper doesn't just grow on trees. I took a year's worth of paper product weight and sales from a major paper supplier to find a reasonable cost on 1 ream of Dunder Mifflin paper. Now that we've accounted for most of the overhead, we see that Scranton Branch is running a deficit most of the time, but suddenly pull $1 million out of thin air in Season 5. Yes, they absorbed the Stanford branch, but it was a toss-up as to which branch was going to close, so at best it would have doubled their sales. And remember that the Season 3 numbers are an overestimation anyway. Side note, let's use the day Dwight beat the machine to find out the absolute maximum Scranton could make in a year. If you had a team of Dwights burning every lead and every yearly sales call for a year, you'd have $5.5 million, which is only a little under 3 times as much as what they made in Season 5, which just goes to show that was a lot of money. The Season 5 numbers come in before the Michael Scott Paper Company and before they're taken over by Sabre. Dunder Mifflin is under intense scrutiny from shareholders, and Scranton is lauded as the most profitable branch. Not surprising now that we know the numbers. The company's share price is shown to be steady around 25 cents, but at the end of the day it's at $1.13, which is down 6 7/8. So our takeaway here is that the company's a mess. The season 7 numbers aren't enough to keep the lights on. Saber's in full swing and the extra merchandise isn't helping. So what happened in the middle of the series to pump up sales, and why did it stop? Enter Kevin Malone. Let's say you're a mob boss and you send one of your guys to apply as a warehouse worker so you can smuggle the odd shipment. After all, the drivers are known to traffic in hard stuff like caprese salad. He goes for the job but ends up getting a gig as an accountant, but you're a good leader and you take advantage of the opportunities you're given. The company he works for is publicly traded, but it's failing. You got all kinds of dirty money you need to clean, so you start buying up stock in this Dunder Mifflin. You feed your guy on the inside dirty money so that when the sales invoices come in, he tacks on extra and sends it on to corporate. Corporate can honestly report that one of their branches is making record profits. Investor speculation on the reversal of the trend, coupled with you increasing the trading volume of the stock, artificially inflates the value of Dunder Mifflin. When the time is right, you sell your overvalued shares for clean money. It's a pump and dump with a twist. Classic securities fraud. You then tell your crony not to draw suspicion. Maybe you have them work there a few more years. And oh, don't quit. Get fired for incompetence, as to discredit yourself even further. And when you're through, we'll set you up with our next front. Theory lines up with what happens on the show. The feast and famine of sales, the shareholders meeting was investors getting squeezed after the dump. Kevin gets fired only to go work as a bartender, a job that requires good memory and coordination. Kevin? It's otherwise inexplicable why Scranton's doing so well. It's dramatic irony that corporate attributes the success to Michael. But why is it ironic? We all know, deep down, that from a business perspective, Michael is a bad manager. It doesn't matter how high morale is. It doesn't matter how much your staff think you're their dad. Hospitals aren't going to suddenly need to buy more printer paper. Clients will still go for a cheaper price on paper, even if you give them a gift basket. His outdated, reckless management style can't be the reason why Scranton suddenly starts and stops doing so well. So what is? And what does this have to do with the Scranton Strangler? Well, if the theory is correct, then there's organized crime in Scranton, and if you suddenly have a series of murders and a frame-up, it's probably a good idea to suspect your local mob. That being said, feel free to George Howard subscribe. Thanks a bunch, and have a good one.